Hey everybody, it is time for a hydrangea update, and there's a couple of things I want to cover with you. One is keeping your hydrangeas looking really good this time of year. It's the end of August, and there's some things you could do that are going to really improve your hydrangeas over the next month. The second thing is giving you some tips on using your hydrangeas as cut flowers for either a fresh cut arrangement or in a dried flower arrangement. And then the third thing is I want to just take you around the property and show you some of the different varieties, because there are some big changes since the last time I showed you the hydrangeas. Lots more pink. Here's a little sneak peek. Sorry, got the sun in my eyes there, but loads more pink, a lot more color going on. So first thing is kind of taking care of your hydrangeas right now. The most important thing you can do right now is make sure that your hydrangea is getting lots of water, because that's one of the keys to getting those beautiful red and pink colors on them. They'll start changing color gradually as the evening temperatures start dropping. And in fact, we can see the difference between the hydrangeas that we have outside versus the ones in the greenhouse, because the ones in the greenhouse, the temperature doesn't get as low. So most of those have hardly started to blush, whereas the ones outside, we're seeing lots of pinks and reds and mauves, really beautiful colors. So that's kind of one thing that's changing, but giving them more water means you're going to be more likely to get a little bit more color. Now, we did have somebody who came in today and she bought a bunch of hydrangeas that she wants for a wedding next week, and she's taking them downstate, which I thought was a little surprising. I kind of thought, well, why don't you just buy them next week? You know, you can get exactly the one you want. And then she showed me some pictures of the hydrangeas that she was able to find downstate, and made me realize, yes, we've got some really good looking ones here. I'm sure she could have maybe found some downstate that looked really good, but she just knew that these were the hydrangeas that they wanted for this wedding. But she did want to know, like, hey, how do I keep these looking good? And number one, we said, you got to keep them watered. This time of year, if you have a hydrangea in a pot, you're probably going to want to water it every single day. Meanwhile, let's see, I also had to let her know, though, you're probably going to want to bring your hydrangea into the garage maybe, or in, on the porch or an enclosed porch in the evening, because you don't want those temperatures to start getting lower, especially when we're getting into the 50s, because that is going to trigger that color change. And for the wedding, it was really important. Sorry, I got sun in my eyes again. For the wedding, it was really important that she was able to have white hydrangeas. So those were the tips that we gave her. So again, don't do any fertilizing right now. You do not want to promote any kind of leaf growth or flower growth. You just want it to do well with what it has right now. It has everything it needs if you've been taking care of it. So just keep giving it water and just enjoy those hydrangeas. So now I want to show you, if you wanted to cut some hydrangeas for cut flower arrangements, be it fresh cut or dried, here's some tips on that. So when you're selecting the hydrangea bloom that you want to use in your arrangements, you're going to want something that's really fully open. So these are not open at all. They're not ready, and these are just starting. The problem with using any of these is all these parts that haven't bloomed yet, those are just too young, and when you cut them, they are going to wilt. So that's not a good one, and this is probably a little lime or one of the limelight series. So this one isn't ready yet, but I can go over here to this, I think it's a vanilla strawberry. You'll notice it's starting to blush, and that's usually a good indicator. Now there are some of these where there's really young blooms. I probably wouldn't want to trim this one yet, but a lot of these other ones are really far along, and you'll notice the more blush that they have on them, those are definitely fully open. But I should note that if you want it to be more white, you're going to have to pick it a little early, and you're going to do it just when you start seeing that blush appear. And if you want it more pink or more color on it, then you're going to want to wait. Like this one, we could wait even longer and let it get its full kind of pink color going on. And one thing you should note, these are not going to change color more. Like you're not going to get more pink off this one if it sits in a vase or anything like that. So where it's at right now is where it's going to stay. Now these are going to change color a little bit as they dry. In a fresh cut arrangement, they're going to stay pretty much the color that they are as well. So I'm going to actually pick this one because I can get a good view of the stem, and you're going to decide what length you want to have it at, and then you're going to cut it just above one of the leaf nodes. So leaf nodes are over here. This is where the leaf meets the stem. You can see in some spots the leaves might have come off, but the leaf node is still there. You don't want to cut it right across a leaf node because it has trouble getting water up on that. So basically, I'm going to go between, actually I'm going to do it right here because you can see better. So the leaf node was right here. Hopefully you can see this. I'm going to go just above that, and I'm going to cut it straight across. So we're going to just use that. The reason why I'm cutting it straight across and not at any kind of diagonal is because this wound, we want the least amount of surface area. So if I did it at a diagonal, I'm increasing the amount of surface area that's going to be exposed, and that can be a little bit harder on the plant. So this is the best thing to do. Then when we take this thing here, I'm going to show you what we're going to do with this particular bloom. So here's what I just cut off. You can see it has that little bit of blush yet, but everything's pretty much open all the way to the end. There's maybe a couple that haven't yet, but I'm okay with that. First thing I'll do is I'm going to take off all the leaves because these are just going to be taking up moisture and taking energy away from what I need it to. You can leave a couple. I'm going to take off these here, but I will leave these here. Remember, the leaves don't always dry that well, so if you're drying it especially, you don't want to. But even in fresh cut, you don't necessarily want all the moisture going to those leaves. You're going to use your regular greens for that kind of thing. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this end here and I'm going to cut it at a diagonal. So I'm going to maximize the amount of surface area now. Oh, my pruners don't seem like they're very sharp. Yeah, they're not super sharp. Then I'm going to put this right into some water. Now, if I was to be putting this for drying, I would just have my vase and I would pick a taller vase that's going to kind of support this. And I'm only going to put about 1 inch of water in there. I'm going to put that in, and that's all the water you use. Once that water's gone, pretty much then this is going to be all dry and ready for you. So that's kind of the easiest way for drying. And then you can use those. The stems are nice and sturdy. You can use them in kind of an arrangement. You can just put them, in a vase with no water or anything like that once they're dry. I've seen people spray paint them, especially like golds and silvers. That sometimes looks nice. Just remember, if you're using either spray paint or floral spray, put it on very lightly because it's going to definitely look better, but they look great without anything at all. So that's what I'm saying. If you're using them in fresh cut, they're ready to go just like this. So not a problem. Let's see, was there any other little tidbits that I could tell you about these? I don't know, they're just so easy and they're nice size too. Now, and of course you've seen some of my giant flower heads, and then there's some smaller ones. So those are my tips for there. Get this in some water, either 1 inch of water if you're using it for dried, and full of water if you're going to be using it for fresh cut, and then you're going to want to change that water out at least every other day, if not more often. You can use some of the Floral Life or any of those little packets that you get in the grocery store with them. That will extend the life of a fresh cut flower as well. So there are a lot of videos online where people have all kinds of crazy tips for how to do your hydrangeas. Some people actually do a slice down here so it can take up more water. Other people put pickling like solvents, or I don't know what, they're not a solvent, but powders and stuff on them, all kinds of things to be able to get these to last a little longer. I haven't tried all those, so I'm not going to recommend them, but hey, go ahead and watch those and you can try them yourself, because hydrangeas have so many blooms, you can experiment a lot with them. So now I think it's time for me to take you all around the property and show you some of the different varieties we have. So we'll start here at the end of the driveway. This is the Moonrock variety. Now these are the only 3 Moonrocks that we have, but you can see it has a little bit different flower construction than some of the other panicle varieties. They're really a nice kind of tight bunch, and it does give you kind of that moonscape kind of feel to it. Those are those hardy hibiscus that I was experimenting with. Those are looking great. Now here's the Quickfire Fab. So this is the one that has been keeping my attention. Giant flower heads, really covered with flowers, and they're getting really great color on them. So you can see this is kind of the hot pink, but you can see some of them down here are already starting to turn a really nice raspberry color. So I'm really enjoying the Quickfire Fab. It was an early bloomer, prolific bloomer, doing really, really great. You can see every once in a while we get one flower head that's gargantuan. Some of the limelights, they're still doing really well. Remember, limelights are a little bit later than some of the other ones, so that's why we're not seeing as much color on them. Here it is, the Diamond Rouge. This is one of my favorites. And you can see these are getting a really nice pink color. That's one thing nice about the Diamond Rouges. When they're in the ground or in a bigger pot, we get a lot more color than when we're in the greenhouse. In the greenhouse, they tend to turn more mauve because they're not getting quite enough water. We just can't give them enough water inside in those conditions, but just beautiful flowers. Look at the size of those petals, the size of the flower heads, and the plants get really large as well. Zinfandel is another one of my favorites. These are going to start turning really, really hot pink very shortly. So those are beauties. Let's see, these are some more. This one here I think is it a berry white? Yep, this is the berry white. You can see this one's getting really incredible color on it. Beautiful kind of raspberry colors, really, really nice. Some more of the Quickfires and the Limelights. Let's see, is there one that I haven't shown? So here's some little limes, that's in the Limelight family. So here's a good example of, they start out lime, then they turn that beautiful creamy white, and then they'll start to blush. Now, one thing I'm noticing here is there is some brown happening on these petals, Usually that means it's not getting enough water, so I've got to really check on the irrigation on this one to make sure that it is getting enough. If you're trimming flowers for arrangements and things like that, avoid any of these with the brown on them, because that's just going to be darker than the rest of the plant. It's not going to improve at all. There's a bobo. Gosh, the bobos get so many flowers on them. It's just beautiful. Some more of the limelight family over here and in here. And then, let's see. We've got, I think these are firelight tidbits, or firelight, yeah, these are firelights here in the back. So you can see firelight's also getting that really nice red color. This one here is, I got to double check, is this a firelight tidbit as well? It says it is. This one is way behind those, so it's kind of interesting. I'm wondering, just interesting how this one's at such a different pace. But this one is the tidbit, so maybe that's why. And those are just regular firelights, so that might be explaining that. Here's some of the quick fires. Now, these quick fires, you can see these were the first ones to bloom, first ones to change color, and they get a nice, rich mauve color. And because these have more of that lace cap, you get kind of these buds in here that are really a nice dark kind of color in there. So completely different texture than the other flower types. And we're kind of coming through, these are some more repeats here, some more bobos. You can't beat the bobos, and the bobos are starting to blush a little bit. So those don't get as pink as some of the other varieties, but they're still really beautiful. More limelights, gonna come through. Here's another of the Diamond Rouge, and this one, the pink on there is just unmatched. Like, that is just a beautiful pink color on there. So just loving the Diamond Rouge. Some more quick fire fabs. Again, the flower heads on those are just so incredible, and there's just so many flowers. Like, that is a really full plant. And then these are some of the Invincible rubies. And then one thing people might not realize is that there is a difference between an Invincible and an Invincible. So first of all, the flower head on the Invincibles tend to be more of a cap shape or a muffin top shape, whereas the Invincibles are round balls. And with the Invincibles, they are rebloomers. So these are the early blooms, and then it just keeps sending up more throughout the season. So you get a little more color on these and a little longer fresh blooms. Even though on the Incredibles, the spent blooms still look attractive, it's nice to be able to get those fresh flowers on there. So Invincible bells are really, have a nice little feature to them that's a little different. Let's see, got some more quick fires. I think these are little quick fires. These here are vanilla strawberries, so that's always a popular one. And then again, look at these quick fires. So this is a good indicator of what the quick fires tend to look like. So they start out that white, they start changing color, and then towards the end of the season, they do get kind of that dusty mauve color. So they do kind of change over time. Really beautiful one. Now these over here, these are Limelight Primes, and one thing you're going to notice about these, first of all, they're not as far along, and they're also, the flower heads are probably a little smaller than the other ones. And part of that is because this one is underneath this tree here, and it doesn't get nearly as much light as the ones out here. So that's probably the reason why, because these are treated all the same. We give them all the same amount of fertilizer, same amount of water. So it's likely a little bit more light. We'd have bigger flower heads on these, but we're perfectly happy that in this much shade that these plants are still producing so many flowers. It really is a beautiful one. So we love that. We can go ahead and look over here. The hydrangea trees are looking really great. And you can see how their different ones are blushing a little bit differently. So we've got some strawberry vanillas, some quick fires, and then a lot of these are limelights in here. So just a nice combination. This one's a phantom, and the phantom's nice because the flower heads just kind of keep growing and growing. So that's always a pretty one. Now, one thing I will say, the hydrangea trees out here are taking up a lot of water, and we're not able to give them as much water as they would like, and not as much water as they'd get if they were in the ground. They still look great, but these would be even more incredible if we could either give them more water, that would be having them on drip irrigation, or if they were in the ground, then they wouldn't run through the water that we give them quite as fast. But you can see some of those vanilla strawberries, the colors on those are just looking fantastic. It's just great to be able to look out here and just see how things have changed since even 3 weeks ago when I was here showing you these before. Just so much more color in here. Meanwhile, when I look inside, we just brought these two hydrangeas in, these red ones, but all the other ones, you can see how much farther behind the hydrangeas are inside, and that again is that temperature change. It's a lot warmer inside the greenhouse at night than it is outside. So that's the reason why we don't see all that color change out here. So I should also show you I'm pretty pleased with this. This was my experimental hydrangea. It is a quick fire fab. This is the one where I cut all the other branches off, all the other flowers, just to see if I could get a big flower head. And it is right next to its partner, which would be, you know, this is what it would have looked like, but I cut off all the other flowers, and you can see just how huge that flower head is. It's just gargantuan, and it's just starting to blush. Again, if these had even more water, we'd be getting even richer colors off of them, but we're pleased with what we're able to get off these right now, just with the amount of water that we have. So it's just fantastic. Now I'm going to take you out behind the barn and show you those other hydrangea trees. So here are the hydrangea trees out behind the barn, and they're looking great. These are the ones that I took the hedger to and topped them off. And now I had a question this week about why topping them off would make them stronger, because the question was, if they bloom on a lot of new wood, does it really matter? Well, not necessarily, but the reason why I topped them off was because I wanted to encourage really strong growth here in these lower branches. I'm trying to encourage that vase shape by not having really heavy flower heads up at the top that might get wet or might get caught in the wind. It's allowing these to continue to grow in kind of this upward formation, and we're not worried about them breaking off, because the big flower heads oftentimes will get weighted down with either rain or the wind and break branches. So we don't want to break the branches, and we also want to get them a little stronger. We want to encourage that upward growth, and so the stronger they are at the base, the better they're going to do as they get taller next year. So that's just kind of why we do that. And then also it makes it really easy when it's time to prune them. I can just go ahead this fall or in early spring, I can just top them off using a hedger or my hand pruners, and I don't have to worry about trying to address branches that maybe kind of came out sideways or got weighted down or were misshapen. So that's why we do that. Another hot tip is all the hydrangea trees back here are cheaper than the hydrangea trees out front. So because these are a year younger, and because we haven't had to put these through winterization and all that kind of stuff, if you buy one of these, you're going to get them for less than if you buy the ones out front. Now we might be moving some of these out front, but they'll be priced accordingly. So if you want to get a better deal on a hydrangea tree, these are going to look like those out front next year. So they're just about 1 year behind. So just a little tip for you. So that's a little insider tip. Now I'm going to show you a couple other ones that we have inside. So this is here in greenhouse 7. Now this is the greenhouse that was pretty much decimated by spider mites this year. And you can see these plants have completely bounced back. So these were in really bad shape. We were fighting spider mites for probably 6 weeks straight. They wouldn't give up no matter what we did. We couldn't get rid of them. Once we did eliminate the problem, these plants bounced back so incredibly. Basically, they lost all of their existing leaves that were here in June. This is all new growth. Pretty much anything green that you see on most of these plants is going to be new growth. And so this is just incredible to look at. And that includes kind of these over here. It's just so exciting because I was wondering if we were going to be able to salvage these plants, and they have come back with just incredible vigor. They're really a nice shape too. So we did make sure and trim back all these plants as well. And so we're getting these nice, beautiful ball shapes. These are gonna be perfect next year. So we are gonna give them another trim in the fall, just kind of for shape. And then next year, these are gonna be just perfect. And so we're just so thrilled because, gosh, the way they were looking in June, I didn't know if they were gonna make it. And also by trimming them off while we were fighting those spider mites, we were protecting the pollinators. So that's why you don't see any flowers in here, because we cut off all the flowers because when we're treating them for spider mites, we also don't want to end up killing a lot of bees and different insects as well. So this is how this is working. So I'm just thrilled with how this turned out. So here we have the little Hottie, and these are ones that we had gotten in from another grower, and they definitely have some transport stress. So when we first got them in, they were looking a little brown down at the bottom. Some of the blooms just didn't look real healthy. They had lost some leaves, and then they just kind of got some of the blooms got a little less attractive over time just because those bad blooms just didn't improve. But then there's a lot of blooms that are looking absolutely fantastic. If you see this on a plant, like in this kind of situation, it's nothing to really worry about. The plant's going to look great next year. You can always still cut those out. Like we were tempted to just cut them off, but we just haven't had a chance to do that. And the plant would look quite a bit better. But because of the stress, they lost a lot of their leaves. So if we trim them back, they're not going to have many leaves to look at. So we just kind of decided, well, we'll put that we'll see what we can do later on. So that's one thing I want to point out. Hydrangeas are so resilient. You don't have to worry if there's broken branches or unattractive branches right now, because next year they're going to look fantastic. But I just wanted to make sure to show you, like, hey, everything we have doesn't always look perfect, but these are still really good, healthy plants. They just need a little TLC and a season over the winter to kind of recover, and next year they're going to look absolutely fantastic. Take a look at the color on that bloom. This is the Let's Dance Cando from Proven Winners, and Stacy had treated this with aluminum sulfate, so that is what's giving us more of a purple flower rather than the nice pink color that they tend to get. This is a fantastic hydrangea. Macrophyllus can be kind of a challenge to grow here in northern Michigan. We're finding the Let's Dance Cando and the Let's Dance Ariba to be really great ones, because these are ones that we wintered over ourselves in these grow bags, and look at how many flowers we're getting off of them. And these were only 1-year-old plants when we planted them, so these are in their 2nd year, and they were tiny last year when we got them. So it's just fantastic to see them, and the flower heads on these are really very attractive, and they've been sending up new blooms all season. So you can see, like here on the Let's Dance Ariba, lots of new blooms coming too. So we're gonna get lots of flowers. Oh, there's more coming on the Let's Dance Cando. So really happy with this one, but I want to make sure you saw this one. This is a little bit more unusual. It's a new one for us. I'm not sure if you remember a while back when I had that hydrangea tree that had snapped off. Well, this is the tree itself. So you can see here is the trunk, and then we go up. It got up to here and all the branches snapped off, and it was the 2nd time it happened to this tree. Well, look at it now. Tons of new branches. It's getting a really nice vase shape. It's really hard to see. I know it's in here with all these other trees, but this is a great indication of how vigorous and how durable these plants are. It has produced all this new growth. There was not anything except for the trunk. There were no green leaves on here when it broke, and it's just completely come back. We basically have a little mini hydrangea tree. It's a lot shorter than the other ones, but it's gonna be perfect next year. I'm really looking forward to this one, and I'm looking forward to showing you what it looks like next spring. So I think it's safe to say you are fully updated on all our hydrangeas. It is going to be a while before I can give you another update. This time of year, I'm traveling a lot. I've already been to downstate Michigan to the trial gardens, and then Columbus, Ohio, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Next month, I have to head out to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Upper Montclair, New Jersey, Louisville, Kentucky, Chicago, and I think there's one other spot I got to go to. Oh, Kansas City, Missouri. So it's going to be a really crazy month for us. I'm not going to have as many videos, and it's going to be a little while before I can show you kind of the next stage of all these hydrangeas. But I'm thrilled to have been able to do this with you, and thanks for coming along for the ride. Again, I will be doing more how to prune. I have those videos out there. So if you're looking for a video on how to prune hydrangeas, I did do them last, what was it, October, something like that. So there are videos out there, but I will do more, because you can never have too many how to take care of your hydrangea videos, because people just always want to know how to keep them looking absolutely fantastic. And we've got some tips that we like to share. So thank you all very much. I'll see you very, very soon.